Action. All right, here we are. Welcome to the Origin Story Workshop. Now, you're all going to want to have a pen and paper, a journal, or a document open because you're all going to be doing some exercises here where you're going to be working on your own stories inside the scope of this workshop. So make sure that those are ready. And let's just take a breath to center ourselves. Nice, big, deep breath. I'm sure we've all been doing other things today. It's nice to just get grounded and present here with the workshop that we're in now. I know I need that, so thanks for at least doing it on my behalf. I'm really grateful you're all here. This has been a workshop I've been thinking about for a while and wanting to do, and today seems to be the day that we're going to do it. So I'm really grateful that you've all said yes to come on this adventure with me. And this is the first of 6 workshops in a summer series that Tad from Marketing for Hippies and I are facilitating, whether this is your first time with me or if it's going to be your first time working with Tad. Both of us just want to say thank you so much for coming out. We've got a lot of really awesome workshops planned this year for the summertime and, well, if you're on the other side of the world, then the wintertime. And these are meant to be workshops. You're going to be doing work in these sessions. So show up, be prepared to do some work, and we're going to have a lot of fun. This session today is going to be really creative for all of you. At least that's my hopes. And also, just so y'all know, you've probably heard, Tad and I are leading the Craft into Your Signature workshop training. You can still get your discounts and if you join before July the 1st. So that's the link. I'll tell you a little bit more about that at the end of the session, but we're not going to get into it right now. You already know the details. So today's magic plan is we're going to explore the power of storytelling in your life's work. So for those that don't know, we have a children's publishing company. My son Soren and I have co-written and turned into audio stories 15 to 17 books and audio stories now. He voice acts, I voice act. So stories are a big part of our life. We're building a whole story company as one of the branches of Majik Media. And so stories are such a beautiful way to showcase who you are and what you do in the world. And that's what we're going to be digging into today. Number 2, you're going to hear 3 short stories from my life as examples of origin stories and how the power of storytelling can help facilitate deep and lasting lessons in people's lives. And then you're going to explore your own origin stories, the stories that have really shaped you and your life and your life's work that have brought you to this moment in time. And you're going to develop a few new stories to share with your audience and get excited about a new content strategy. Content for the sake of content, writing those, 7 tips for this and 6 strategies for that. It can get really boring as a creator to have to come up with new content ideas all the time. And what is more exciting is digging into the archives of your own stories, of who you are and what you're doing in the world, and to share the stories that have shaped who you are. And that's a lot about what this is about today, so that you can forever be inspired when it comes to writing content for your newsletter, your social media, your blog, for podcast episodes, etc. Because we've all lived these incredible lives. We all have amazing stories that have made us who we are and set us on this path. And that's what we're going to explore today. Because your stories hold the power to teach, inspire, transform lives. If you're talking to new audiences like those of you who have never met me before today or never met me before my Thriving in Business Without Social Media Masterclass, the stories that we tell help people to resonate, and they inform people whether you're the right person to be working with or not the right person. Because chances are, if you share your story, the people who are listening to your stories may see themselves in your stories. They may see the transformation you've gone through in your life to get to where you are, that might mirror the exact same journey they're on right now. And that builds this resonance. It builds this trust. Not to mention, stories are healing. When we hear other people's stories, it creates an emotional resonance inside of us that can ultimately heal lives, heal the world, open our minds, show us new perspectives. And that's the beautiful thing that happens when you embrace storytelling. I know for myself, the YouTube videos that I've done, the podcast episodes that I get the most responses in my inbox from are usually when I'm telling some form of story. And so that's the purpose of this. So what your signature workshop, this training that Tad and I have coming up, I've been touring personally this. It was a total accident that I stumbled upon this, but a year and a half ago, Tad asked me to come teach a workshop to the Marketing for Hippies community around my journey of leaving social media and the marketing strategies I implemented after leaving social media. And I've developed over the years 19 relationships-based marketing strategies that have helped me to get to where I am. I taught that workshop. We had 1,100 people sign up for the first one. And I was like, oh my gosh, I need to go deliver this on other stages, virtual stages and in person. And so I've done that workshop about 30 times in the last year and a half. And that's grown my email list by almost 5,000 people as a result. That's 30 hours of teaching time, maybe 20 hours of administrative work of back and forth emails and setting things up and upgrading my slides and all that sort of stuff. But the workshop's been very popular. And so that is what inspired me last year to teach a training called Craft Into Your Signature Workshop. And there are four key things, four key ingredients that go into your signature workshop, which we teach in our training coming up here. But I want you to understand them now so you can see where story fits into that. So your signature workshop, obviously, the first thing you do is you briefly share your backstory in relationship to the topic that you would be teaching in your 60-minute workshop. Now, the story is meant to be a way for you to build that connection with your audience and help them understand the journey you went on to get to where you are and how you came about your current philosophy. So in my signature workshop, I talk about my relationship with social media before leaving, what happened after I left, the shocking truth of what it's like, what it feels like to be erased from society and have to rebuild my marketing strategy and rebuild all of my relationships in the real world because I was no longer on social media. So I get into that, and that helps to anchor me in my village-minded philosophy that I approach business and partnerships with as an entrepreneur and as a creator. And then the third ingredient that you would put into your signature workshop is the experience. You're meant to guide some form of experience. Like today is not just me talking to you, it's an experience, it's experiential. You're going to actually have some insights. You're going to walk away feeling changed from the workshop, and that's what your signature workshop is meant to do. And then the fourth thing, and this is how you turn a signature workshop into something that can generate revenue for you, is you have a call to adventure at the end, whether it's to sign up for your coaching, a program, a membership subscription, your meditation library, whatever it is, there's a call to adventure. If this resonates, if you love this, if you want more, here's a next step that is available to you. Otherwise, thanks for coming out. I hope you enjoy it. And so these are the four ingredients that your 60-minute workshop have to include in order to be the powerful experience that is going to bring new audiences into your world. So stories are powerful because they do create these heart sparks, these heartfelt connections that last, that make for unforgettable experiences. Next is simplicity. They help to take complex ideas and turn them into simple, digestible, memorable insights that people can take with them through their life. Like with Majik Kids, we tell these amazing audio stories that offer values and morals, that have these incredible characters. We have voice actors play the characters. We have a team of producers that score the music and sound effects. And we're teaching real life lessons and life skills through the stories. But they're epic, and they help kids to remember these values so that they can take them with them through their life. So we have one story that I recently wrote called Old King's Gold, and it's about the golden rule. And I had one little girl at our market booth last week because we're running a family fun zone at our local market, and she came up to me afterwards and she said, "Thank you so much for the story." She was there listening with her family for like an hour and a half while they're playing games out on the lawn. And I said, "What was your favorite audio story you listened to?" And instead of saying Old King's Gold, she said the Golden Rule story. And so the lesson and the value shared in the story stuck with her more than the name of the story itself. And the story helped to anchor the lesson and the value. And that's what stories do for people. Next, why your stories are powerful is they create, they help. We've been telling stories around campfires forever. This is just what we do, and our brains are wired for stories. They're so much more impactful than facts. I know this because I was a terrible student in high school. I could not remember any formulas. I was awful at science, math. I just didn't care. But when a teacher told a powerful story, I was right there with them and I would actually remember, I would retain the information, I'd be able to repeat the information in the tests. They also create empathy and understanding. And so this is important as you're sharing stories with your own audience, showing empathy that you've been there, you understand what they're feeling and experiencing, and you have seen the other side of whatever hardship, whatever struggle, whatever it is that they're growing through right now. And then there's also just inspiration. Stories spark inspiration. I mean, probably your favorite channels to watch on YouTube likely inspire you in some capacity. Same as the channels that you watch. So I've got 3 short stories. I have not shared these stories how I'm sharing them today. I felt a little bit nervous coming into this because these are personal stories from my own transformational journey, from my way past, a recent past, and one of the stories that I'm living through in my life right now. After each of the stories that I'm going to share, I have a writing cue for you to dig into your own past and to dig up a new story that you could then take forward and you could share it as a blog, as a podcast episode, YouTube video, social media post, newsletter, etc. So at the end of this, you're going to hear 3 stories. You're going to start writing 3 stories. You're going to have 3 new stories to share with your audience, which is such a gift. So my first story that I want to share with you is this idea of being a natural born entrepreneur. I believe that if we all dig into our past, there's hints, there's glimmers of who it is that we're going to be and what we're going to do in our life. And when I look at my past and who I was as a kid, there's definitely some hints that I would become an entrepreneur and a creator. My parents, I remember my mom always telling me this as a kid, is that I was a schemer. I was always coming up with plans to buy what I wanted to have the experiences I wanted to I was the guy that was always organizing the sports games, the adventures, and all the things with our neighborhood friends. And so I would be the guy, I would get home from school, I would pick up the phone, I would call 10 friends and arrange a road hockey game because back then you couldn't shoot a text message or send an email. And so that stuck with me. At the age of 6, I remember my buddy and I really wanted Pop-Tarts for breakfast at a sleepover. His mom refused to buy us Pop-Tarts. So we got a magnet and a string and we went down to the baseball diamond and we through the snack hut, there was little floorboards with these wooden floorboards where everybody dropped their money. And we went there and we managed to get enough money with those magnets to go buy our Pop-Tarts, go back to his house and have our breakfast. And then at 12, I remember the first year I started playing golf, I was very, very obsessed. I would play 45 to 54 holes a day. I lived at the golf course from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. every single day of the summer. And my buddy and I, when we get bored from golfing, we would go collect driving range balls that went over the fence. And we ended up, within a month, we saved up a barrel full of golf balls. And he had a field in his yard. And we ended up basically selling driving range balls to all the neighborhood kids. And so that was our business. We sold the buckets of balls for $2 a ball. And then as a teenager, my mom made me the best sandwiches possible. Like the best. They were thick and huge, and she would always give me 2 sandwiches, thinking that her grown boy plays hockey and football and golf and all the other sports. He needs to eat 2 sandwiches, but even her sandwiches, 2 was way too many. And so I created a little sandwich business amongst my buddies, and I would get my mom, my mom would make me the 2 sandwiches, and I would sell the sandwiches for money, for beer on the weekends, and I built this business where I was getting paid by my buddies to basically have my sandwiches. In college, I was not good at school. I did not go to classes very often, and I ended up making a little business, creating these little study/cheat sheets for all of my friends that they would buy off me because I wouldn't go to class because I'd be on the golf course. And then when when the tests and the exams came and they got all the basically what to review, I would cram and make these amazing little study and cheat sheets and I would sell them to all my buddies. Well, it turns out school was not the path for me. After 2 years of college, I was studying business and professional golf management to run a golf course. I realized that they were training me to get a job. And I didn't want to get a job. I wanted freedom. I wanted freedom to create what I wanted in the world. I wanted freedom to play professional golf and sponsor myself to do that. And that's exactly what I did. I dropped out of college after my second year and I started my first business. And this is my 20th year as a full-time entrepreneur. And that first business almost ruined me. But that's not the story I'm going to share right now. We're going to save that one for the next story. So now that's my little story about my upbringing and how there were these hints and these glimmers of possibility in my childhood that came with me through all of the years. And I felt like when I dropped out of college and I decided to start a business, that that was the way forward for me. That was my true path to finding freedom, to find my own way to creatively express myself in the world. And I've never, ever looked back. I've been full time ever since then. And I have created so many incredible things over the years since making that choice. So that's a little story. Now it's your turn. You're going to take about 5 minutes and you're going to reflect on the formative elements of your childhood. Consider the traits, the interests, the experiences that shaped you, including any significant challenges or mentors. And write about, this could just be bullet point. You're just looking for to flesh something out. Write about how some of these influences have guided your journey to where you are today and the work that you're doing. So some of them are just really obvious. You were super into music and art and creating. You had an amazing teacher, and it was just like you knew from the beginning that this was your path forward. Some, your contrast that you experienced, the hardships that you faced, forced you to go through the necessary growth that brought you to where you are. And then you've looked back and been like, I'm going to support people so that they don't have to go through what I did. But a lot of these formative elements, your interests, the things you were naturally drawn to, these were in your childhood. So you're just going to take about 5 minutes right now and write about your childhood in bullet point form and see what's there. Any questions? If there's any questions, feel free to ask in the chat. Is there a way to stabilize my camera? Is it moving? It shouldn't be moving. But I'll see what I can do while you're all working on this exercise. So take 5 minutes. I got my timer on, and then we'll come back for the next step. Alex asked, does it matter the age, teens, childhood, whatever is coming to the surface for you, write about that. All right, take another moment to just write any other final thoughts down. Obviously, we're not going to complete anything today, but this is meant to get you going, meant to spark some creative juices. And there's going to be three of these writing exercises for you. So, did anybody have any parallels from your childhood, share in the chat, that came with you into these years that helped to shape and move you in the direction that you've gone in your life? And isn't it amazing how these things work, how we end up where we are? I never would have imagined on career day that I would be who I am now at the age of 40 and that I would be where I am doing the work that I'm doing. Never would have imagined it. It's pretty wild, this life adventure that we're all on. So, next story, my second short story for the day is about a little white rabbit. This was a very significant moment in my life. You know how we have those moments in life that can sometimes shape everything about where we're going, the direction. We have these crossroads or fork in the roads where we make a choice or where something happens and we think we're going in one direction and we completely change the course. And this is what happened for me in my life after dropping out of college. So I already shared, I dropped out of school and I started a company at the time back in 2005, and it was called Man Shirts. And my buddy and I did this, and we lasted a little over a year. And basically, we sold extremely controversial, offensive shirts. If we'd done it this day and age, we 100% would have been canceled long ago. But that was who I was, at 19, 20 years old. I was a party animal, and this was just what I thought was good fun. And what was interesting, I didn't grow up with any spirituality in my household. God was not mentioned. We didn't go to church. We were just kind of living life like a bunch of simple, regular folks. You work, you play, you have fun, you make the most of the adventure that we're on. That was kind of my growing up. And then I had this experience. I started this t-shirt business. Within just over a year after dropping out and doing this, my life had become the negative affirmations that were written on all of our shirts. I spiraled out of control. I began drinking every day, and I had this rock bottom experience where I literally got in a fist fight with myself walking home from the bar one night because I had hated everything about my life and everything about who I'd become. And the next day, I woke up and I was a wreck. And I just remember it felt like the first time I'd ever really prayed for support. Like I remember just like being on my knees and praying. And I wrote down on a piece of paper that day of like, I want to do something I'm proud of. And that was it. It was a very simple intention, but it was like that one intention coming from the depths of my heart, the depths of my soul. It created this cascading effect. And in the coming months, mentors showed up out of nowhere. I started to learn meditation. I focused on personal growth. I started making all these changes. The friends I had at the time started to fall away naturally, and I started to become a new version of myself. And it was also very confusing because anybody here who's ever had any kind of spiritual awakening where your life and your perspective on reality radically shifts in a very short period of time, it's confusing and it's ungrounding. And so I was praying a lot because I was going through so many changes so fast. And I was wondering, like, am I going crazy? Is this real? What I'm experiencing? Is this pull in my heart to do something great in the world? Is that real? And I remember going home for Christmas that year and spending time with all my high school buddies. And we had this experience where six of my favorite friends from high school, we decided to go out for a big adventure and a night of drinking, essentially. We had a DD. And I remember we're driving down a back road and we were on our way to a bar, and there were six of us in my buddy. I think it was a RAV4, like an old RAV4, very small. I was the smallest guy in the vehicle. I was sitting in the trunk space in the back, and my other friends were like 6 foot to 6'4", big guys in a small car, basically. And it was a party night, and we're having fun. And we had just finished smoking something, as young teenagers do, with the exception of the driver, because we were smarter than that. And all of a sudden, a little white bunny ran out into the road, and it's nighttime, and it runs out into the middle of the road, and my friend Matt, who was driving, managed to slow down, and this bunny is beelining it, like literally going 35, 40 kilometers an hour for an extended period of time, and it's zigzagging back and forth, and I remember distinctly it stayed within the headlights going down the middle of the road, and we start howling with laughter because this crazy little bunny is like beelining down the highway, and it's zigzagging. We're honking the horn. My buddy Matt's even flashing his light and turning the lights on and off. And for probably 45 seconds, this bunny is just gunning it. And I remember, it's staying inside of the light. That became a very, very important part of this moment in time, because I was questioning myself as I wanted to get back into partying, while questioning this expansive feeling that was rising inside of my heart and my conscience over that year, of wanting to do something great with my life and wanting to do something I'm proud of. And there was this fight inside of me of this light and darkness, and this bunny was beelining it down the road. And then all of a sudden, after 45 seconds or so, we're literally like in hysterics, laughing so hard. It finally leaves the ditch. And we're like, what was that? And we're laughing and laughing for a couple minutes. And we drive up over the crest of this hill. And all of a sudden, a car that was coming up the other side of the hill passed another car going up over the hill. It couldn't see us, and it swerved into its lane, and it missed us by maybe 10 feet, probably going 150 miles per hour. It was going very fast. And all of a sudden, in that moment, I realized that that little white bunny that was staying in the light saved my life. And it blew my mind. We were all blown away. We started laughing, but like inside of me, it was like, whoa, everything you've been questioning about the light and the darkness, it's real. Stay in the light. And for the last 19 years, that has been my journey of just like keep creating the things that are wanting to be expressed through my heart. Keep staying true to who you are, to what you're here to do. Keep doing work that you feel proud of, and the payoff will come. And that has been my mission. That has been what I've stayed true to. Anytime I've been in doubt, anytime I've been on my knees praying for clarity again, that little white bunny comes to me in my mind. I just remember like, okay, there's more beings here that are supporting our journey. And sometimes we have to be humbled. Sometimes we're going in the wrong direction and we need that redirection because we think we've got it figured out, but maybe we don't. And that's happened many times over the years. But that little white bunny was the thing that like it really committed me to my path. It made me realize that whatever this is that's going on in my life, these changes I'm going through, this transformation I'm in right now, even though I can't see it all clearly, there's some form of guidance that's taking place, and I'm going to stay committed to this, and I have. And so now it's your turn. That's my little white bunny story. I've never shared that publicly, I don't think. So you get to be the first ones to hear that. It was a very important moment in my life. And now it's your turn to write about a pivotal, transformative experience. So think of a significant low point in your life that forced you to make a major shift or change, ultimately guiding you to where you are now. What were the things that catalyzed that transformation? How did the struggles you may have experienced that time foster your growth and evolution? What were the hardest parts about that chapter? What were the most rewarding parts? What life lessons or skills did you gain during this time? So we're going to take another about 5 minutes, and you can just write about whatever comes up. Choose one moment. I'm sure you have plenty of moments, but choose one of them and write some bullet points with regards to these questions here. Hopefully that was an enjoyable story, and thanks for all the comments in the chat. I haven't caught up to those yet, but I will in a moment. So you take 5 minutes, and I'll catch up to all these notes in the chat. All right, take another moment to finish what you're writing. Sorry about the music if it was distracting. It's always hit and miss with playing music during these things. For me, I love it. Apparently, this was cathartic. That you know, it's healing to write our stories, and it's healing for others to hear our stories. And that's the gift that we have to give when we have these amazing experiences and these stories to share. It's so beautiful to offer these gifts, the fruits from our life. And there's this amazing opportunity that we have, and I feel the responsibility that we have to share these stories. Even some of the stories like this next one I'm going to have, the story's not finished being written. We don't have to wait until the stories are complete before we start sharing some of the chapters that we're working on right now. And and right now we have a very significant new chapter in our life. And it's all about raising the spiritometer and bringing joy to the world. And if you would ask me 4 or 5 years ago if I would be where I am right now working on the project I am, I never could have imagined it. But sometimes life has other plans for us. And that is the case with this particular story. So my son Soren, he just turned 8 last week, and I felt my life was absolutely transformed when he was born, as all parents probably feel. And it was actually his birth that inspired me to leave social media because I didn't want to engage in that space any longer, having the purity of a child in my life and feeling completely uninspired by the ways in which social media was tearing society apart. And that was 7 years ago. It's way worse now. So Soren, I always like to say it this way. Celeste, my wife, doesn't love how I frame this, but it is kind of parallel to my path. I left college. Soren, at the age of 3.5, realized that he didn't want to go to preschool. In fact, he didn't want to go to any school. He wanted to be home with mama and papa because we're his people. And so that caused us to have to make some changes and some decisions in our life that were unexpected and also quite exciting. They came as an opportunity. I've been working on the internet for a very long time so I could create as much freedom as possible. And so we decided not going the homeschooling route where you're
Welcome to
teaching
another
regular
episode of
curriculum,
Making Magic with your
but
host
at a
Bradley
home
Morris
setting,
from Magic
but
Media.
going the
This is the
unschooling
go-to
route,
show for
where we're
purpose-driven
just
creators
supporting Soren
to get
with his
inspired
interests,
with
his
innovative
passions,
new ideas
and we're
to produce
figuring
your
it out as we
educational
go.
content, build
And which
thriving
is what
online
I've done as an
communities, and
entrepreneur
turn
as
your
well.
message into a movement.
And in that process, Soren and I were always coming up with stories together. We would come up with so many stories. Every night, he'd be like, Papa, tell me a pretend story. And so I would make up a story on the spot and I would share that story with him. And eventually, we started coming up with a lot of stories. And there was this one moment where I have a men's group that I started years ago out of loneliness after leaving social media. It's called Man Ventures, and for 6 years we get together on Tuesdays, and whatever guys show up, choose the adventure that happens the following week. And on one particular evening, we had 10 grown men in my studio, and we all sat down and we wrote children's stories together. And then we read our stories to each other. And the one story I wrote that night, called The Master's Apprentice, I knew I wanted to turn into a book. And so I've been published by mainstream publishing companies, and it takes 2 to 3 years to get a book to shelf. They pay you 6 to 8%, and I didn't want to go mainstream, and so I got my assistant. We had a lull in our time, and she researched for a few months about publishing. She advised me not to go ahead with a publishing company. It was a bad business decision, but I'm pretty stubborn, and I was also feeling really inspired about this vision of creating a book company that has the best audio stories on the planet. And so I said, we're going to do it anyways, and we'll see where this goes. In my mind, the worst case scenario is that it fails, and Soren gets an incredible homeschooling experience where he's getting to write and produce books and stories, etc. I mean, what an amazing educational experience. And so 2.5 years ago, December 11th, 2020, what are we in right now? 2021? Yeah. We launched Majik Kids, our kids publishing company. In our first year, we released 18 books and audio stories. And lo and behold, books were a terrible idea to be publishing. They're very expensive and they take a lot of work. And so we had a business meeting about 1.5 years ago. And we had my whole team in the office here. I have a whiteboard over there. We're all up on our whiteboard. And Soren is down at his desk, down on the floor, and he's got a little whiteboard. And we're all talking about, how do we grow Majik Kids? We're not making any money with this enterprise. This is really hard. What do? We have the audio stories. They're our best asset. We thought the audio stories would sell the books, and we were totally wrong in that assumption. And all of a sudden, Soren walks over to the whiteboard and says, listen up, everybody. And this is word for word. And we all stop and we look at him. He raises his whiteboard over his head and he says, what we need is a button. And we're like, what do you mean a button? He's like, kids need to be able to push a button and a story pops up and starts playing. And we're like an app. And he's like, yeah, we need an app. And we all just like jaw dropped. And it hadn't even dawned us at that point that we needed an app. And so we're like, of course we do. He walks away. It was like his mic drop moment. Walks away. We're all dumbfounded. He goes back to his whiteboard and starts chilling. And the rest of the meeting became focused on what would our app be. And we're like, it would have to be the best audio stories, the best kids music, the best meditations, and curriculum with every story, so that parents, educators, caregivers, etc., can support children to embody values, to learn about their lives, to learn about life skills, and to remain curious and joyful. And so that became our mission. And we spent 1.5 years and plenty of money investing in building our app, which went live earlier this year, and also producing the best audio library of kids' stories. We've licensed over 600 kids' songs, and we have a library of meditations. We have curriculum with every story. And we had no idea what we were doing when we said yes to this. It was just every step of the way, the next yes felt really right. And we didn't know what we were doing. We didn't know how to publish books in the beginning. Didn't know how to build an audio company. We didn't know how to produce movies for the ears. We didn't know how to do licensing. We didn't know how to do royalties where we pay 50% of our revenue to our artists. And all these things we figured out. We had the intention. I had a clear vision. I surrounded myself with an amazing, enthusiastic team who could get on board with where we were going and come along for this ride. And we all figured it out step by step. And we're 2.5 years in. We now have 30 audio stories live, 600 songs, a dozen meditations, curriculum with each one. We just closed our first big licensing partnerships that'll have us in roughly 100 schools this fall in the Bay Area. Probably 100,000 families getting access to the app, over 2,000 educators. It's our first real money making. And we've got all of these amazing licensing partnerships that are starting to line up for us. And all of a sudden, it's just like all of the steps I've taken in 20 years of entrepreneurship, of learning to turn my life's work into a work of art, of learning to create entertainment-based educational content, of learning how to create viral videos and comedy and music and all of the things, writing. It's all just making sense. And it's merging with my greatest passion of all, which is being a dad, coming up with fun stories, and working with the most brilliant artists possible to inspire children and families everywhere. And none of the steps along the way were crystal clear. I always had a glimmer of like, here's the next step, go do that. And then there would be roadblocks and obstacles, and we would have to figure things out along the way. But that is the adventure of moving through the unknown. And we've all moved through unknown periods in our life where things are hard, where things are unclear, and we just have to know the next step. And as coaches and guides, that is also one of the gifts that we bring to people is the people we work with is they don't know. They have an idea of what they want or where they might want to go, but they can't see the whole path. But if we've been there and done that before, we can help them see that path clear. And that's our gift. That's our gift to others. And I have no doubt that every single one of you has a story to share about traveling through the unknown and arriving into unexpected new places. And so your next exercise that you're going to have some time to write about is think of a time in your life where you were seemingly pulled forward by invisible forces into a completely new path. For me, Majik Kids. Majik Media gave birth to Majik Kids. That was not something I had intended or dreamed up long ago. But it is the greatest joy in my life. It's the direction I could see the rest of my life going is writing stories and producing stories. So when you stepped onto that path, what fears came up about going through the unknown, about taking that leap of faith? Who did you become from moving through the fires of transformation, embracing the unknown? What lessons or advice would you have for others going through a similar pivotal moment in their life? That's your next exercise. We're going to take about 4 minutes and go. If you have questions, I'll answer in the chat. beautiful. Hopefully that gets you started with 3 new story ideas. And yes, to answer the question in the chat of, do I connect these stories with what I'm selling? The answer is yes. I mean, chances are, based on what you're teaching, the journey you've been on, the journey of your audience, that there's so many parallels that you have from the stories of your own experience. The stories, even stories don't even have to be yours. They could be stories that you're telling of case studies that you've worked with. Those are also powerful stories. But today we're just working on the stories of our own that are ours to share. So the moral of the story exercise is that each of these prompts could have taken you down many different rabbit holes. We could go on for all day. This could be a week-long workshop where we're just digging up old stories and creating a plan to share these stories in unique and creative ways with our audience. And there's no shortage to the stories you can share. And so my encouragement with all of you is just to tell more stories in your work. Instead of giving 7 tips, which are everywhere on the internet, tell a story that infuses those tips. Years and years ago, I worked on a book called Be Golf because I play professional golf as my hobby. And I wrote the book and I was pretty proud of it. But then I read The Legend of Bagger Vance. And The Legend of Bagger Vance has so many spiritual teachings in it. I was like, I can't release this how-to book. I have to write a novel. I've been working on this novel for 12 years. It's 90% finished. And it is a story instead of a how-to. But the how-tos that I created in my original manuscript are woven through the fabric of this novel. Stories are so powerful. So the question that I have, and I encourage you to take a few minutes after today, is what other stories do you have to share? What are the other untold stories that have shaped who you are, the choices you've made, the lessons you've learned, the transformations you've undergone, the skills you've acquired, and the success or failures you've collected along the way? All of this is gold. Tell those stories. And so the final reflections, and I'll take about 15 minutes or so after we get to the top of the hour. For those of you that want to stick around and do Q&A, share some reflections, we'll take some extra time to go overboard, but I just want to get through this before the top of the hour, as I promised would be done. So embrace stories on your journey, and because your stories shape who you are. Your stories are courageous acts. I felt very uncomfortable sharing the little white bunny story today. It felt good to get that out, but it was uncomfortable. I was a little bit worried. What if I tell it wrong? What if it doesn't resonate? What if it's lame? You know, that's the inner dialogue that happens, but it feels powerful to share powerful stories from our life. Your stories connect your audience to your values, your mission, and your wisdom. Your story evolves with you. So keep reflecting, keep sharing, keep evolving. I'm sure if you stick around on my email list, you're going to hear more exciting stories from Majik Kids about what we're learning over there. That story's not written yet. And then your stories are meant to be the ways that you stay true to who you are and you share those reflections with your audience. And not all the stories are good. One of my most popular YouTube videos in the last year has been telling the story about how I did breath work and I fell off a log and smashed my head open and almost died. It's like, not all the stories are great. Some of them are like hard lessons, but those are also good lessons for other people to learn to not do breath work up in the air on a log. So, lesson learned. Our next workshop is July 5th with Tad. You can check out the page at, I will post a link here, or you probably actually already signed up for that, so don't even worry about it. But this is July 5th, and it's going to be around choosing your signature workshop topic and niche. In the signature workshop training, we go through your storytelling process specifically to your signature workshop. Today, because not all of you are going to join this training with Tad and I wanted to do a storytelling process that was relevant to everybody, whether you continue on with us in that training that's happening or you don't. The signature workshop training, if you are interested, is from September 12th to December 5th. Tad, if you're here, if you can post the link, that'd be great. That way I don't get distracted. I can keep to these last 2 minutes here. We're basically going to support you to craft. You're going to deliver your first 60-minute signature workshop during the actual session. You're also going to network with all the other participants so you can start to trade signature workshop hosting, and then you're going to take it on tour after you do your first delivery and you refine it. And that is going to be the main marketing strategy that you take forward into 2025 to grow your audience, your impact, and your income. It is the simplest, most scalable marketing strategy I've discovered in my 20 years of entrepreneurship. Create an amazing workshop, keep making it better, and deliver it on as many virtual stages as you possibly can. It's way more effective than podcasts, as you'll hear in my Thriving in Business Without Social Media story. So included are 8 live sessions plus recordings, all the coaching tools and templates. We create landing page templates, email outreach templates, spreadsheet templates, all the templates to help you make this as scalable as possible, as well as media page templates. So all of your pre-written emails for partners, social media posts, banners, etc. We show you exactly how to set all that up and structure it so that it's as little time and energy as possible every time you get somebody to say yes to hosting you. We have a community space. I will be in there every day offering support, coaching, feedback, etc. You'll also have the rest of the community that is supporting you, and then you're going to deliver your workshop live during the training. Every single one of you will deliver it. So you can sign up early and save $200 by July 1st. And my mouse is stuck. So that's the end. I think the next one was, what questions do you have or reflections? And if you have any, you can either raise your hand or share in the chat. I'm a little bit behind on everything that's been happening in the chat. I will find a spot in our blog to post all the slides if you all want to see these slides again. And the signature workshop idea it's brilliant and so simple. It's almost too simple because you're just delivering the same workshop again and again and again and again. I've done it 30 times and with minimal effort, I would say. For example, about 3 weeks ago, we sent out roughly 25 email outreaches to host my signature workshop, and we had 7 people within a week book me. And that could grow my email list depending on the audiences. That could grow my email list by definitely hundreds and hundreds of people to thousands of people. We had a partner last week, grew my email list by 500 contacts. And if you think about the many hours that you might spend on social media and doing other marketing ways, it's like it just doesn't compare to doing the signature workshop route. And all the details are on that page that hopefully is in there. I'll post it as well. So if you have questions, feel free to post in the chat. Thank you, Tad, and or raise your hand. And for everybody that is still here, thank you so much for coming to this workshop. It's, as many of you know, it's not easy to deliver a workshop for the first time. All of the thought and anticipation, and is the timing going to work out? I did want to have more experience for all of you to do some writing, and that's just the time slipped away. So here we are. But I'm really grateful you're all here, and I hope you take at least an hour to continue fleshing out your stories. I would love to see the stories. If you publish one of your stories in the next week, I want to see it. I'll put together, if you all send me a link to a blog or a video, I'll put together a recap of this event in my newsletter, and I'll put links to all the stories that you're all sending. So just email me your story once you've published it live somewhere at bradley@magicmedia.com. And I will happily put together a post talking about the power stories and then link to all of your stories so my audience can find all of you. Really grateful that you all came out, and I hope to see you all in the signature workshop training this September with Tad and I, as well as at the next 5 events that we'll be hosting. There's no $200 off coupon code. The price just goes up by $100 on July 1st. So you can just go pay if you are going to join that training. And Dr. West, if you want to come on video and unmute yourself, I will unpin my video so we can say hello.
Okay. Hi.
Hi.
So my question is, you mentioned like working on our stories that would help our signature workshop.
Yes.
What if we're not really clear on what that is yet or what the topic is?
Come to the next workshop that Tad's leading. It is going to be around your signature workshop topic and niche. So that is going to be the next one. Today, I really wanted to dig into just a creative process to help unearth stories, to show how easy it is to unearth stories. And your story one of the stories today that you just fleshed out might relate to your signature workshop. If it doesn't, that's okay, because in the signature workshop training, we're going to guide a whole process around storytelling and philosophy that is going to really shape your story. But today was meant to unearth it and get you sparked and stoked about telling more stories in your work.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thank you for being here. Any other questions? Let's see. Sean says, I find it a slow, laborious process to write my story, and more importantly, it requires me to process my thoughts in a mode that is heavily slanted toward the intellectual side. For my flow, I find it much easier to talk through my story verbally than to write it, especially in the early, yes, in the early, sorry, it skipped forward for me, stages of getting my thoughts together. What do you think about setting up breakout groups where people can practice articulating their stories verbally rather than or in addition to writing? Yes, absolutely. In the training that we do, that's exactly how it works. Is you have breakout groups throughout the process that you're going to be practicing your story, practicing your philosophy, etc. And I agree. You know, everybody, I can type as fast as I can think, which for most people that isn't the case. And so, um, if that is harder for you to type at the rate of your thoughts, then definitely like do a voice memo and get it out. And I use a program called Descript. There's plenty of transcription tools. Descript is very accurate. And when I'm doing coaching sessions to our community and a lot of the YouTube videos you might see if you're on my newsletter, I'll be doing a coaching call. I'll take the video, upload that to YouTube. I'll take the audio of that video, I'll put it into an MP3 and I'll upload that as a podcast episode. But then I get the transcript, I run that through Descript, and then I get ChatGPT to edit the spelling and grammar for me. And that takes a matter of minutes. And then I have the written version of my story, the audio and the video. So however you like to consume your content is available to everybody. So for you, you know, doing the voice memo side and then running it through a transcription so you can edit it afterwards, that's a great idea. Go with your strengths and how you prefer to process and communicate and speak and work through your ideas. And there's amazing tools that are available. Sophia, come on down.
Yeah, I'm curious. I don't know if there is any difference between point of view and philosophy, because I've done some work with Tad, like his 30-day point of view workshop and some other workshops that he's had. And so I'm just wondering, is there a difference? And if there is, what is the difference?
Yeah, the point of view and philosophy are it's same. You know, Tad calls it point of view. I call it your unique philosophy. It's going
Okay.
to be very similar. The important piece is with the formula of how you structure a signature workshop is you open with a short story, maybe 5 minutes, talking about your own path that help to create this body of work that you're now introducing people to your philosophy. So like in my Biz Without Social workshop, I tell the story of leaving, what that was like, what led me to leave, and what happened after I left, and then the skills I had to develop, which was around relationships and how to be in relationship through the lens of business and entrepreneurship and creating and finding partnerships. And then through that, my philosophy as ground is like I have a very village minded approach to how I build my company. Even though I'm doing something that's global and scalable, I approach it as though we're in a village together. And that's how I want to run my business. So for you, you're going to share the story, which helps to demonstrate your unique point of view or your philosophy.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thanks for being here. I hope there was some inspiring thoughts that came through.
Oh, there was a lot of stuff that happened. Yep.
Hallelujah. That's great. Keep going down the rabbit hole. Shady ass deadline for sharing our story with you to have it posted in the newsletter. Let's just give it a week because anything over a week will be forgotten. So you got a week. Send me all those at bradley@magicmedia.com, and then I'll write a newsletter in the coming weeks that showcases all of the stories that are shared. And make sure you give it a good title and a link to where I'm gonna send people to check it out. Any other questions? Yes, Caillou, is that how I pronounce your name? You can unmute yourself and share. No?
It's not, but I like that name.
How do you pronounce it?
I pronounce it Q.
Q. I like that too.
Two good names. Great.
That's right.
Thanks a lot, Bradley. Super appreciate this and just your energy that you bring it. And I wanted to ask you a question. So my work today, I work as a couples therapist. And one of the things that I am hesitant about sharing my story is like I went through a big I went through a divorce, and and even before that, I was on a personal journey, and I went through difficulties in communication. I learned, and that's what sent me on my path. And then I went through a divorce, and then I went even deeper. It was like went to next level. And so I learned loads, and I know there's been transformation in me. But then I worry because I worry about how I'm perceived if I say I'm not in a current relationship. It's like then I'm not perceived as to having like arrived at the other side. Like, and so what advice have you got in terms of sharing a story like that?
Well, I think that's a great thought experiment for you because I think you finding right alignment in that exact answer, imagining I just asked you that question, how would you find right alignment to feel fully clear and powerful in how you communicate that answer to others so that if 100 people ask you that same question, you have a clear answer that makes sense to them and feels good inside of you. So I think that's your homework is like,
Right.
I can't answer that for you, how you find right alignment in that answer and how you communicate that. But I'm sure there is an answer that exists for you. And that would, I think just journaling about imagining 100 people just ask you that question. How do you answer that in a way that feels really solid inside yourself?
Yeah.
And
Thanks.
then when you find that right alignment, telling the story will be easy.
Oh,
And you can probably answer those questions through the narrative of the story. And even though you might not be in romantic relationship, you're in relationships all the time. And
yeah.
so you do have relationships in your life that you're in. And I'm sure you have a lot that you can share from those. And I'm sure you have a lot you can share about the hard relationships that you have and the things that have gone wrong that you have insights into.
Yeah. That's super helpful. The answer already came to my head.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. How's that work? That sound good? Little homework.
Yeah, no, I mean, I realize that there's a part that like it's already clear to me to a certain extent. It's just yeah, it's funny how these stories develop within us over time. And people have I've had people ask me those questions, and I think it's a great thing it just made me think like, what are the kinds of questions people might ask if they look at our stories?
Yeah.
And like and then to find a response that feels coherent but not trying to like pander to an image, but feels true.
Well,
Thanks.
isn't that the beautiful thing about stories? I mean, how many movies have we watched or books have we read where we have so many unanswered questions about the main character, which is only going to lead to more stories. And isn't that a beautiful gift? If people ask you these questions, then you can follow it up with another story.
Yeah, thanks.
It's exciting. Love homework. Thank you for asking. Thanks for being here. Got time for one more. I'm the comment feed is so full here that if you did ask a question in the feed, I might have missed it. So feel free to re-ask. And otherwise, raise your hand. One more question. So fun. This probably should have been 2 hours. We'll have to do a redo and make it a 2 hour thing because there's so much to unpack here. All right, Shady, go ahead.
Hi, this has been really wonderful. Thank you so much, Bradley. Really, really appreciating what you offered today. My question is, I'm heading in a particular direction. I'm not ready, right? Like I haven't got the what's next for you if you join this and all of that sort of detail. Do you think, I guess this is a bit like, well, a bit like Q's question. I'm not complete in my process in terms of what I'm offering. Do I wait so that I actually do have a next step for people? Or is it okay for me just to go ahead and just start sharing my stories and where it goes next to come?
You know the answer. Share your stories. It's like the practice of sharing your stories, the practice of teaching. The more people you work with, the more experience you have in working with those people, sharing your stories, offering workshops, sharing your tools, etc. That leads to the next thing. It's like if you want to get the accelerated path to growing your business, then do it as often, teach as often as you possibly can. Years ago, 2009 to 2012, I accidentally started teaching meditation classes because a friend of mine saw my own transformation over a few years and she asked me to teach a meditation group. I led a meditation group. They loved it. They asked me to come back the next week. That over the next 3 months became 3 days a week. I was teaching meditation. That became 4 days a week. I started leading groups around the world on retreats. And within 3 years, I'd taught over 500 meditation workshops. I then produced a library of audio meditations, put those online, and those have reached millions and millions of people and generated hundreds of thousands of dollars of passive income. I didn't plan it. I had no experience in teaching meditation. I got really good at leading meditations, which allowed me to eventually build this world-class audio library because I just did it so often. And that growth trajectory of it's like, if we teach once a week, the growth trajectory, it's going to happen. But if we teach 3 times a week, how much faster do we get better at what we're doing? How much clearer do we get about our unique point of view? The more our teaching is our best marketing. So whether you have offerings or not, you just doing your thing, teaching, showing up, offering your stories. Because what will happen is people like, can I buy coaching with you? You'll tell a story. Could you teach a workshop on that? Like, I didn't ask to become a meditation teacher. People asked me to teach them meditation based on what my experience was, and that just set me off on a whole other journey. So, you know the answer. Start sharing.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
And it fed your magic kids too.
It's unbelievable. Like
Yeah.
all of the yeses that have led me to here, like so many of them were just like they came from a moment of inspiration or confusion, like deep confusion leading to falling on my knees and praying and like a pop of insight being like, do this. And without questioning, that would be my next step. And I would just focus all my energy on that. And I play professional golf. The magical thing about golf is like you're hitting an impossible target way off in the distance. The hole is this big, you're hundreds of yards away, and you're focusing all of your energy on the target and trying to ignore all of the potential disasters of hitting into trees and water and sand and all the other places that you don't want to go. And you just have to focus on the target. And all of our targets are just the next thing that we're here to create. And if we can just pour all of our focus into that, which this day and age can be hard to stay focused on the thing, but that is the goal, is just be as focused as possible until you get to that next target.
Thank you. And I love that metaphor of golf.
I love golf. Thank you so much for being here. I'm glad this was inspiring for you. Can't wait to see your stories. All right. I think that about wraps it up. I'm super grateful for all of you being here. Tad's workshop, I think, is next Friday, whatever July 5th is. And that's going to be around choosing your niche and topic for the Craft into Your Signature Workshop training. Whether you do the training or you just decide to go implement the strategy on your own, you're going to get a ton of value from that workshop as well. Thank you for being here. We have 5 more events. If you know people that might want to come join us for the rest of these events, please send them. The recording for today is going to be on the same registration page. This is going to change we're going to remove the image for this event and put in a video and an audio player. So you can check that out there as well if you want to revisit this. Thank you, everybody. See you next week and hopefully in the training in September. Take care.